I'm Burnedhead, and I'm joined today by Gnomebitten.
I'm Gnomebitten. We are both Dark Souls masters, although
Yes,
I think at this point, Burnhead has proven himself to be more of a Dark Souls master.
at this very specific thing. Like,
You're the superior Artorias foe.
right, I will claim to be better at Artorias. I think you're still better, like, in general, but there's no good way to actually measure that, so we're here to talk about fighting Artorias because I punched out Artorias, which means I fought him with no weapons in either hand. And the only damage was dealt with by my fist, 2 damage at a time.
Yeah, the fist.
So, so we're going to talk about that. So one thing I kind of wanted to have you along for is just to provide some perspective, since the process of doing this kind of warped my own perception of Artorias in a couple of different ways, and I think you can provide a bit of sort of context for people who aren't me, since I'm very familiar with this, and most people are either like mildly familiar or unfamiliar. So why don't you give us a sort of a rundown on what the Artorias fight is like?
Well, okay. Artorias is probably the most complicated boss fight in the game. He has a lot of different moves and does them uh, basically your like all the bosses, like your location and what you're doing will influence what he does. But he has a real wide assortment, so it feels the most like a duel of all the fights. And you're supposed to like be blocking, like using a weapon
And a shield,
and
maybe?
and a shield. But I know we've both opted not to do that a couple different times.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done this. The only boss I've punched out is the Asylum Demon,
Mm-hmm.
which takes about 20 minutes to do,
Yeah.
maybe a little longer. Um, this seems to have taken considerably longer than that.
Yeah, this takes a longer, because I want to say that the Asylum Demon has something like 400 hit points, on the
Maybe
order of
like
that.
eight,
Maybe
because like
800.
I know your first jump attack can do like 300 or 400 damage if you do the double hit thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you use the damage boost there, then you do more than 400 damage in most cases.
It's
And
like I could look this up because I did look up Knight
okay,
Artorias' health, which is
it's
new game.
it's 3,750.
Yeah, 3,000. Man, I wonder how you would know that.
I'm quite familiar with that.
So if each punch is 2 damage, viewers at home, can you tell us how many punches that
I'll
is?
give you a little while, and then I will tell you the number because I know that number
Oh.
too.
Ooh.
Anyway,
Yeah, but neither of us are strangers to challenge runs. I know we've both done the Hollow Warrior
right,
challenge, which is pretty hard for this specific boss.
right. So we both did Hollow Warrior runs. You did one. We were kind of going back and forth with the Hollow Warrior for a while.
Yeah, my first one I did. Okay, just to explain it, the only equipment you're allowed to use is stuff that is visually worn by the Hollow Warrior enemies. So, Cracked Warrior round shield, Hollow Warrior armor set, and the Broken
Broken
Straight
straight
Sword.
sword. Yep.
Uh, yeah, the first run I did of that, I chickened out and used a short sword on the Four Kings,
Mm-hmm.
and then Burned didn't do that, and then I didn't do that.
Right. And then the second time I did this, I decided I wanted to fight Artorias with that equipment because I like fighting Artorias. And I managed to do it on my first try, which I wasn't expecting to be able to do.
Yeah, that
But
was a major difference in our play. The major that I think that perfectly illustrates our difference in play styles is you spent 45 minutes fighting him with with Broken Straight Sword and got out on your first try.
uh-huh.
I spent 3 or 4 hours doing it, but the fight only lasted 13 minutes.
Right. For the record, it wasn't 45 minutes, it was like 20 something minutes. But it was, I will admit, it was a very slow fight for what it was.
I'm highly aggressive, but
Yeah.
can't be highly aggressive doing this. There's just it's
Right.
untenable.
So obviously I enjoyed fighting Artorias, but it became apparent to me pretty quickly that what I enjoyed about fighting Artorias was dodging all of his moves because as Gnome said, he has a lot of different moves and like the main challenge of the fight, like he doesn't have any really big flashy moves. Like almost all of his attacks are just like sword attacks. Like he can fling goop at you.
Yeah, there's the goop. There's the triple somersault slash.
Yes,
That's pretty
yeah,
flashy.
right. But even that is still like he's just attacking you with a sword.
Yeah,
I mean he's kind of flipping around and stuff, but he's not. He doesn't like throw fireballs or anything else like that.
he's not. He's not. We've not, I guess I never actually knew if it was hit based or damaged or time based, whether or not he started hulking out or not. But it appears
So
to be hit like damage based.
so he won't start hulking out until you've gotten him down to 80% health. At which point
Mm.
he does it almost immediately, and then can do it basically at will. Although it's very really very variable. Like he can actually stack it up. You know, if he's already
Yeah,
powered
yeah,
up, he
it
can
does
do it a
stack.
second time.
And so we've talked about some of the past like attempts of
Right.
us trying to fight Artorias stupidly.
Mm-hmm.
I noted earlier some of your equipment. I'm going
Yeah.
to guess Chloranthy ring and ring of steel protection.
So this is Hovel's ring and Ring of Steel protection,
Okay, yeah.
and then I
I
have
forgot about hovels because you
yeah,
are light rolling with the giant set, so it's pretty much a given.
yeah. And then that's just Mask of the Child, which is essentially doing the job of the Chloranthy ring.
Yeah.
Um, I've, I did, you know, it should be possible to do this without some sort of stamina boosting item, but it's harder. You do have to actually like manage your stamina a little bit more,
Yeah.
and that's sort of a limitation I just didn't want to have to deal with. And then everything else is just the giant armor set at full level.
So yeah, you've got maximum flask for new game.
Yes.
Uh, and do you have a stack of 99 Humanzos sticking
No,
around?
that's a good question. I decided that I didn't want to use any humanity healing in this fight, just
Yeah.
because that is one dimension that makes the fight a lot easier, but not in an interesting way.
So just
Because
keep having more health for you.
yeah, I mean, and because like grinding humanity is not a very fun thing to do,
Yeah,
especially
uh,
since like the best place to grind humanity is actually after the Artorias boss fight.
that that is true.
So
Otherwise, you're just doing it on rats,
rats, yeah. I ultimately ended up with a lot of humanity because I ended up grinding souls down in the
skeleton baby zone.
in skeleton baby zone exactly. So this is a little bit off topic, but
We think we're going to go off topic on this Lord of the Rings size?
I don't know if we have enough
Artorias.
time. No, no. Anyway, so getting
Back on the agenda.
back to like how I arrived at doing this. So we sort of were doing various challenge runs. Like after I beat Artorias with the Broken Straight Sword and the Hollow Warrior set, you went and fought every boss with that setup, which was pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Uh,
And then
I think we both did straight sword hilt runs
yeah,
after
we
that.
did yeah Straight Sword Hilt, which we didn't fight any like optional bosses, since the Straight Sword Hilt, for people who aren't aware, is essentially the Broken Straight Sword except 10 times worse.
It's worse. It's only marginally better than fists after you upgrade it.
Right. Like, it at least does scale off of your stats a little bit. But anyway, so once I think it was after we did the all boss fight race this
Yeah, we talked about
spring
doing
was
this.
when I decided that I need to at least determine whether doing all fifth, punching whether punching out Artorias was even feasible. And there were a couple of metrics for feasibility here. Like
Yeah, I think good sense says no, and I think we've proven that. But
right.
feasible does not mean possible, which is very important.
I mean, possible is obviously is possible for like a computer to do this. If you were of a mind to program a computer to do this. But the question is whether I could do it like with my hands and my body. And so, I mean, one thing I knew was going from the 20-minute Broken Straight Sword fight was that I would need to find a lot more attack windows because that's a big problem with when fighting Artorias is like he's pretty aggressive, and so unless you're willing to take a lot of hits, there are only very specific times that you can actually attack him.
Yeah.
So, and the other baseline strategy for when you have a bad weapon or no weapon is you can't trade hits. Like you don't have enough health and Estus to
Like
be able to afford that.
if you just try to race, you're going to lose that
Yeah,
race.
you lose that race. So you have to have a plan for attacking such that you are safe at pretty much all times, at least in theory. Like I'm a human being, and so sometimes I make mistakes. But
Yeah.
every time I'm dodging or attacking, I at least have a plan that does not like that. As long as I'm doing things correctly, I won't take any damage.
I always unlock when he does that attack, when he's
Yeah,
the jump, because it goofs up the
it
camera.
does make the camera get a little silly, but I sort of just got used to it after fighting Artorias a lot. So anyway, that's sort of a thing that will happen in a lot of little details here. Is aspect X was weird, but I just got used to it after doing it a lot. But anyway, so yeah, so I sort of the big thing I had to figure out was whether I could find enough attack windows such that I could like fight him in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, which I guess we'll define reason. We've decided that humanity healing is not reasonable, so I guess
Right.
that defines a reasonable amount of time as within 20 Estus of hits.
Yeah.
20 Estus of incidental hits, which seem to
Now,
be
yeah.
mostly the thrust attacks because they kind of
Right.
have
Yeah.
persistent
The thrust
hitboxes.
attack, like, I'm sort of weak against the thrust attack for a couple reasons. First of all, it comes out pretty fast. Like the
Mm.
tail's really short compared to his other attacks. Also, like you usually don't want to dodge forward into it.
Yeah, but every other attack you want to dodge
Most of
forward.
his other attacks, it's safe to dodge forward as long as you have enough time, sufficient timing. And so, like sometimes my muscle memory screws up, and I dodge forward into the thrust attack, which actually works like 1 out of every 10 times, and it's really hard to tell how.
Yeah, it must be the your just framing through it.
Maybe, like sometimes I feel like there's a bit of an angle. Like okay, very technical stuff. Dark Souls 1 has only four-way dodging. You can only dodge forward, backward, or left or right. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
later Souls games have either eight-way or continuous dodging. So if dodging that thrust attack involves an angle, I don't know how that works because like anyway, this is the sort of thing that I dwell on after I've been fighting Artorias for several hours.
It's like, man, how does this? Looking off at the sunset, why did that hit me?
Yeah, or why did I manage to do it that one time when it
That
failed every other time?
like it's madness.
Right. So there was sort of this exploration phase of me trying to find places where I could attack Artorias safely, and a lot of it was just me learning to dodge forward into attacks because like there were a lot of things that I was where I was when I was fighting him very conservatively, I would either like back dodge a lot of his just sort of normal attacks when I didn't need to, which makes more sense if you have a weapon that attacks more slowly. Because a lot of these attack windows that I ended up finding only work because the punch is as it goes a pretty fast attack.
Yeah, it's just fairly fast. Like slower than I think a dagger, but
Right.
faster than
Than most
most things.
big swords or other big weapons.
Yeah, like I think I've probably fought him the most with the club or reinforced
Yes.
club, which is kind of chunky.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to place your hits.
Right. So learning, most of those attack windows sort of and like you just did a goop fling there, like if I didn't have a good like muscle memory for dodging forward into the goop fling, and so just practicing that enough such because it's basically a free hit if you can dodge into it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that reflex built up, then you lose a lot of stuff. And so
Yeah, that one looks easier to front roll into if you're close to him too,
yeah.
which incidentally, we are because we're
Yeah.
punching him.
Like, that's the other thing is that I learned a lot about Artorias' attack patterns, but a lot of what I learned might not apply unless you are staying pretty close to him most of the time. So he might have other like habits that other people will see that just don't really come up during this fight. But in any case, so but one thing that made this a lot harder than other challenging boss fights was just the sort of complexity and the having to sustain concentration. Because for comparison, in between, I want to say like last winter, so this would be like about 10 months ago, I fought Gwyn with no weapon
Mhm.
and a shield because Gwyn has one attack that I can't dodge fast enough. Like the start of one of his combo attacks,
Yeah, it just comes
it
out.
just
Yeah,
comes out very fast.
that's the attack that I have long since stopped trying to block and also stopped trying to parry. I just let it hit me and then parry the second one.
Yeah, right. The thing is that like when you're up close to him, Gwyn essentially has 4 attacks. He can
Yeah,
kick you, he can grab you, and then he can start his slow combo or his fast combo. But once you have plans for all 4 of those things, that's the whole fight. Like sometimes he's far away and he'll do like a leaping attack at you, and you probably don't want to try to do anything other than dodge that. But that's 4 attacks,
mhm.
so like it doesn't even require that much concentration. Whereas this Artorias has, depending on how you count, somewhere between like 12 and 17 attacks, which is a lot more.
It's just
And
fairly more.
yeah, and each one like
They have
has
variations. Like that
yeah
slapdash can either be 1 or 3 hits.
yeah like he has one combo which is the somersault combo, which he can either somersault 1, 2, or 3 times, and that's like his only fixed combo. Like everything else often feels like a combo, but is essentially more like him chaining moves together.
And like that's the sliding dash he does. There's
Yeah,
2 sort of like similar moves like it.
right. Like he has lots of moves that can close distance, and and then like a bunch of other moves that create distance. And you have to kind of have your plan for what you're going to do for each one of those things. Oh, and one other fun little thing is that he has a 4th somersault move that he can just use in the middle of a normal chain that look like that. Like
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
that looks exactly like the other somersault moves, but it has some differences. Like it can't close distance. Like the normal somersault combo, he can start from pretty much any distance because the first one moves towards you, and so he can close basically any distance with the first one. Whereas if he's in some sort of other chain of attacks and he does a somersault, that can't move forward. It will just be hold him in place. But it comes out pretty quickly, so it can surprise you if you haven't seen it often enough. So he essentially has like 4 somersault attacks, even though they all use the same animation. So anyway, so
It's also crazy how much he moves around.
he also
like,
moves
compared
around
to
a
every
lot.
other boss.
Yeah, like he
It's like
spends time like dodging away from you, but just sort of walking around the arena, which
he rolls. Nobody else rolls.
yeah, he has a dodge roll. It is kind of funny that like in all of Dark Souls 1 at least, like the only fights that are just one guy with a sword are Artorias and Gwyn.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot of not a lot of like humanoids you fight. It's mostly
Yeah,
like big old
like
monsters.
Ornstein and Smo they are humanoid, but it's a lot different because there's 2 of them.
It's easy to forget that Smo is humanoid because he's so weird.
Uh huh.
He's more like a snowplow.
Mm-hmm. So
Looks like some of his attack has a deflection where like your fist bounces off when you hit him. That's weird.
Are you talking? Well, so if you do a light attack out of roll, then you do this like backhand swipe.
Yeah, you're
if that's what you're talking about. Oh, and that comes out like that's the fastest fist attack that you have. So
yeah. Although there is some tech. With I know this is better for the Asylum Demon. I have no idea if it's better for Probably not better for Knight Artorias. Is your left hand punch is actually better for
Oh,
the Asylum
yes,
Demon
the
because it's
left-hand punch
faster. The
is very
jab.
fast. I did some research on alternate attack patterns. The left-hand jab against Artorias does 1 damage.
Yep,
Um,
it does half the damage of your normal fist,
right.
which I
So,
guess with the Asylum Demon who stands there and lets you hit it, like you
yeah.
can just mash. But
Uh-huh.
Notorious does not allow that.
I basically decided fairly early on that like this fight is already complex enough that if I tried to find, I mean, I'm sure there are certainly are windows where I could have, gotten a jab in here or there, but like I think I would have just lost my mind trying, and it's just not worth the mental investment of 1 damage.
Oh, surely. It's
So,
just like it's not worth heavy attacking. I don't think because I think that
oh,
does 3 damage instead of 2.
it actually doesn't against Artorias.
His defense is high enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I'm doing here, you'll see me doing a mix of light attacks and heavy attacks. The heavy attack has a much better range actually, and it
Yeah, that
also,
was that, right?
yeah,
I think
that's the
that
heavy
range is
attack. It's
there.
sort of like a long straight kind of looking move. It also rotates your model. So if you aren't pointed at him, it'll sort of do a re-aim for you, whereas the light attack doesn't. Um, so that's also something I sometimes have to decide on. So yeah, the light attack is faster and has a shorter range and doesn't re-aim your model. So I most of what I'm doing here is a mix of light attacks and heavy attacks. The leap attack also only does 2 damage, and I never do it just because the input is so inconsistent.
Yes. So when it does happen, it's probably an accident.
Well, yeah, I never do a leap attack in this fight. Anytime I like, ordinarily you might want to do a leap attack to close distance or something, but in this case I just roll towards him and do a light attack because it's way more consistent and will do the same damage. But getting way back to the
Get
investigation
back on topic.
on
Yeah.
of how feasible this was, like one major issue was how long was it going to take me, to do the fight. And I know how long it took now that I've done it, but several months ago when I was first investigating this, I wasn't really sure because I was sort of feeling like if it was going to take too long, my body wouldn't be able to take it. Like I couldn't sit in a chair for long enough because there are no breaks here. Like
Yeah, like you can't take a bathroom break. So it'd
no,
be
like unless I wanted to wear a diaper or something like
yeah,
that. But
that'd be like it's like doing a RPG speed run.
right,
It's like no breaks.
yeah,
In for the long haul. We're beating Persona 4 today.
uh huh.
In we go. We gotta do the Yosuke social link. Actually, I think they do the Chie one in that one.
Okay.
I don't
So
remember though.
so
But
like,
time.
but
Yeah,
yeah. So
time.
so I was kind of thinking of like if it was under 5 or 6 hours, that was sort of my threshold for being like maybe feasible. And so I needed to determine whether it was even going to be that short. Like it might have ended up being longer than that. I don't know. But like so as I was finding new attack windows and sort of doing testing, I sort of used the time to the first power up as my metric for how long it was going to take. Because like after once you've gotten to the first power up, like you aren't actually 1/5 done because he'll spend time powering up after that. But
Yeah,
you,
which
but that's
gives you
it's a good rule of thumb anyway.
yeah, it's something you can like guess with. So did you try any other strategies before? Like what did your testing process feel like? Was it just coming here and seeing
I mean, it basically
how
was
good you
like
could punch him?
because obviously I was able to without much trouble fight Artorias very conservatively, and that was sort of the
Yeah.
habit that I had to break first. So I had to come in with the mindset of it's okay if he hits me some if I learn more about like hit boxes and whether a given attack may or may not be viable for whether I can convince myself that it's safe or not. And so it was sort of like the research process was either trying to find new attack windows and taking hits, or doing kind of a time test where I tried to use the safe attacks that I was already confident in, and just seeing how long it took me to do a given amount of damage, which again was usually the 20% it took to get him to the first power up stage.
Uh-huh.
And I think the first time I like went in, just fists and got him down to the first power up stage took me like 45 minutes.
Ooh.
Which, I mean, on the other hand, 45 minutes times 5 is like almost 3 hours. No, almost 4 hours. But that's actually a lot better than 5 hours. So that was
better than expected.
better than like the limit of my feasibility. So that was encouraging that I would probably be able to do it in less than 5 hours, and probably even less than 4 hours.
Which it appears we've succeeded in.
Yeah, right. And then the other, like the final feasibility test was whether I would actually have enough Estus to be able to do it. So while I was doing these tests of how long does it take me to get to the first power up, the other question was how much Estus did I have left by the time of the first power up. And if I have 12 Estus by the time of the first power up, that's never going to work.
Yeah, it's like you're going to have to rely on humanity at that point, which
Right.
we had decided we did not want to do.
I already kind of nixed that idea because, like, again, I could use a lot of humanity, but it first of all, it felt like either unsporting or otherwise dishonorable, which are both concepts I don't put a lot of.
I know in our personal dealings with Dark Souls, I know that's something that we differed in greatly.
Right.
But
I felt like if I was
it's legitimate,
as long as I was going to be trying to do this, I didn't want to use humanity. And also, I guess with the caveat that, like, if it turned out that I couldn't do it any other way, I would have gone ahead and done it that way. But once I got all the other feasibility metrics sort of ironed out, it didn't seem like I would need to use humanity, and so I would rather just not.
That's one thing I've noticed is you've not fallen for the attack that RD has always gotten me with, which is you've done a good job of dodging to his side.
Oh. Okay.
I often end up behind him when I dodge.
Oh.
And he has an attack that punishes that.
Yeah. Well,
the spin that gets his behind spin where he here we go.
So this is the first power up, and so the video timer is at almost 33 minutes, which is a lot better than 45. So I think if 33 times 5 would be 165. So this ultimately ended up being about 6 minutes over that. So, but that's all pretty decent as far as time goes.
I'm glad he doesn't take less damage when buffed.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least not in this instance where the damage numbers are so small that it doesn't matter.
I think it only increases his damage. I think I used to think that it made his attack patterns more aggressive, but I'm now pretty confident that that's not true.
Yeah, I think I was disillusioned of that when just doing like Hollow Warrior, because it's similar to this, but not nearly as bad.
I mean, you still spend a lot more time in charged up, fighting a charged up Artorias. Basically, anytime you're doing some challenge run where your weapon can't possibly knock him out of the power up, then you just get to fight him while he's powered up a lot of the time.
Yep.
And you kind of realize that, wait, this is just the same attack pattern, just he has like purple mist around him.
Yep. And he's already it's already worn out.
Yeah. So yeah, it is just 60 seconds. So.
Ooh, that was gutsy.
Oh yeah, that's the other. Like one of the last things I decided that I could do safely was that if he's doing the somersault combo, you have to side roll out of the first one, but then if you're close enough to him, you can just sort of sidestep the second one.
Yeah, if you can walk, then he.
So let's see if I can do it. Yep. Okay, so that's a sidestep, and then I can take two light. That's the only time where I can do two attacks in a row, is because he's either locked into the third attack, or he will just sort of stand there recovering from the combo, and I have enough time to do two light attacks. And that's the only attack window where I decided it was safe to attack him twice.
Because everywhere else it gets kind of...
It's like you're really rolling the dice, because he could just attack you back, and if you're locked into an attack animation, then you just get hit.
Yeah, I saw your hit counter there got up to 8.
Yeah,
that's how you know you're in the gravy.
Yeah,
8 whole damage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the highest like air quotes combo I get in this fight is 5. So the damage number is 10, and I think that's the highest it gets.
That's That's big. That's lots of damage.
Yeah, that's things are going real well, and you can get 5 hits in.
Hmm.
Right. So
It's like a percent of a percent.
yeah, yeah, right. But yeah, so because you do have to do 1,875 hits, I want to say.
Well, if he
Something like
has
that.
if he has 3,750.
And I'm never doing any 1 point jab attacks, so it's all
Yeah.
2 hit attacks. So
It's just my brain can't divide 750 by 2, even
yeah,
though
it's
it's just 375.
yeah. So
There we go.
anyway, yeah, 1,875 punches here, which I think it works out to like 10 a minute or something like that, almost a little more
Yeah.
than 10 a minute, I think. So which
At least
goes
it's
along.
not Manus, who has much more
Oh
health, but
yeah,
it's also less fun, so nobody does that.
right. Well, there was like the one crazy person who did like deprived with no weapon upgrades on like New Game +7 or something like silly like that.
Yeah. The
And
trick with that is it's possible to fight Manus and have it be absolutely safe.
uh-huh.
It just takes forever.
Right. Well, here we are talking about
Yeah,
fights
here
that
we are doing
takes
this.
forever. But
Not
yeah.
as long, even. You
Oh,
just have to
really?
wait for him to. You just have to wait for him to do any attack where he does a down punch and like his
Oh,
fist stays on the ground
his
for a
fist
while.
just sits there for a second or two.
Yeah, you jump attack it once and then roll
Okay.
backwards a bunch.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of interest in trying to punch out Artorias or punch out Manus or Calamite.
Oh, there it is. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, oh yeah. Speaking of the razzle dazzle, or the punish for being back behind his right leg. One thing about that thing that makes it more dangerous for the player is that he doesn't even do it all the time. Like sometimes when you're standing back there, he just rolls away from you, and so that makes it more of a surprise when he actually does it. I mean, because if you're expecting it, like if he did it very reliably every time you were standing behind his right leg, like you would always know that it was coming, but he doesn't. Sometimes he just leaves.
Those are the attacks that tag me the most because I'm an
Mm-hmm.
inveterate roll towards or.
Oh yeah,
And if you roll towards or side to either of those attacks, you get hit twice.
yeah, right. There are a few times when I accidentally roll forward into the helicopter, which is
Yeah,
bad news. But
that's 2 hits.
hmm
We're already down 2 Estus. We've Estused as many times as he's charged.
right. So at this point, I think on this, so yeah, so by the time he gets to the first charge up in this fight, I've only used 1 Estus, and that's really good. Like my Mendoza line for Estus usage is if I've used 2 by the time he does his first power up, then I'm basically okay. Like if I've used more than 2, then I'm probably not really on pace because I'll be using more once he's powered up and once I'm just more tired. Because I'll just take more damage.
We're up to 3.
Yeah. And like the other thing is that in theory, while he's powering up, I could run up there and hit him a couple of times.
Yeah,
And
but the blast does damage.
the
You'd be
blast
able
does
to.
damage. The other thing is like that's the only time I really have to do anything other than look at the screen. So I would use that time to like drink water, try
do
to
anything.
like wiggle my hands around to keep him from turning into concrete blocks.
Plus, he does get damage resistance during
Yeah,
the
well,
power.
yeah, I have no idea. Like the punch might only do 1 damage.
Yeah, so like you'd be risking life and limb and giving up your water break to do like maybe 3 damage.
Right.
It's like a punch and a half.
And I'm pretty sure that if I didn't have the opportunity to take little breaks like that, this would be much harder. Because my eyeballs and my hands would just start to rebel after like an hour, I think.
Yep, he didn't do the dash there. He did a flip instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's.
remember,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm really happy you did this because
Yeah.
I've only punched out one of the Souls games, and I basically cheated
Oh,
because I didn't
okay.
respect Dark Souls 2.
Uh-huh.
I gave myself the Vanquisher seal early.
Oh, you just right, okay.
But
No.
okay, I will say, Dark Souls 2, warts and all,
Uh-huh.
I did really enjoy punching it out with the Vanquisher seal.
Oh
That was
yeah.
actually very fun.
No, I really appreciate that it has like a reward and or whatever you want to call it, a mechanism by which that's actually possible. Because here it's clear in Dark Souls 1 that
Yeah,
like the fact that it does any damage at all is kind of an afterthought, and like that there are combat animations for no weapons. Like you're not
even,
supposed to do this.
yeah, even fist weapons in general are pretty poorly because like you have the Cestus, you have fist, you have claw.
I mean, and Claw, at least to its credit, has completely unique animations. Like Cestus
Yeah,
basically has the same animations as Fist,
and there's the Dragonbone fist, which, while
which
fun, is not any good.
right, it's kind of a joke weapon. So credit to Dark Souls 2 for taking punching a little more seriously.
Also, just all the punch weapons just being really good in that
Yeah,
game. They're
also
even kind
yeah.
of bad in Dark Souls 3. Like
Mm.
people use Cestus all the time, but just so they can parry in their offhand.
Oh, okay.
Because Bare Fist doesn't actually parry in Dark Souls 3.
Oh, that's weird. I guess does it like do the weapon art?
Yeah, it does your weapon art
Okay.
when you're barehanded. But if
That's
you equip Cestus, you parry. That's the
okay.
lightest parry item.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess it would be the lightest parry item. Okay. That makes sense.
Dark
So,
Souls 3 lore.
yeah, right. So
Even
after
but even yeah,
no go I was changing the subject. So if you have anything else to say.
yeah. But I was gonna have a closing thought on Souls punching weapons. I remember the unique fist weapon in Demon Souls even being pretty good.
Oh,
It's just
really?
called the God Hand. There's two. There's two of them.
Okay.
They're really really heavy and they need a
Is
lot
it
of strength.
sort of like the Dragon Bone Fist or
Yeah, it's kind of like Dragon Bone Fist.
okay.
It's funny you find there's two of them. And you do wield them, but you find them like way apart from one another. It's weird.
Okay. Demon Souls. Yeah, someday I'll play Demon Souls, but who knows when that'll happen.
Who knows? Up here we go. I
Yep, there's the
think
power
this
up.
is this number 4.
Something 4 or 5. Yeah. Like I think he's scripted to do it every time he gets down another fifth of his hit points, but he obviously can do it sort of whenever he wants after he's down below 80. Um, and of course, him doing a lot more damage is pretty dangerous. In fact, since we're kind of recording this just audio, I can show you the most exciting part of the fight here. Let's see. So first he has to charge up, which he will do in a second.
And he's already charged. So
Oh,
I
he
assume
is
he's
already charged. Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe yeah. Okay, so he's
Oh,
about
but
to get
he's
double
the
juice
daily
here.
doubler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of hard to tell when the first one runs out because the graphical effect doesn't change. But okay, so that's it.
Oh, Dwam.
So I've flub one somersault dodge, and like so at this point, obviously any hit ends the run.
Yeah, and you have to fight the instinct to heal
Right.
because it's that's a very human ability. The ability to forestall direct action in the face of knowing it will destroy you.
Uh huh. So at this point, I'm playing a little bit more conservatively, but you can tell that I'm still attacking him, almost as much as I would normally, if only because like so much of my behavior at this point. Okay, so he's powering up, so I can take a drink, but whenever I'm near death, I can't really change my behavior that much because it's so habit driven that I kind of need to just keep proceeding with the
Uh,
plan. Like I can't. It's really difficult. If I sort of figure that if I start just like dodging everything and not never attacking because it's not safe, then I'll start learning bad habits, and I can't really afford to do that because it will make the fight take forever. If I suddenly like break some of my muscle memory, um,
you
for
got to keep the rhythm going.
yeah, right. So there, I mean, that's the most exciting moment, in terms of like how close to death I got. There are a few other ones where I'm like below 15% health probably.
But getting close to death is good. It
hmm
gets your blood up.
It made me really happy that this is the run where I won, because like that was the closest to death I've ever been, and this was like, come on, it should be this one, right?
About
So
as close to death as you could be without actually getting there.
right. So and so that was like, as far as whether you can make a highlight reel of this fight, like there's that, and there's the time I hit him five times in a row,
Yeah, the big money
and
hits.
there's like the bizarro time when I dodged forward into his charging thrust move and it didn't hit me, where it's like, how did that happen? I don't know.
See, the other thing you should have done for style points is parry some of his attacks.
Oh, just a demo.
Not just so that you would take less damage from them. It's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm not going to be able to avoid this. Instead of taking the counter hit for getting hit while dodging, what if
hmm
I parry it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I might have had bandwidth to do that. I mean, I obviously wasn't really thinking along those lines, but yes, I could have done that. Since I actually
Yeah,
did have some Estus to spare, I think I finished the fight with 2 Estus, which was a lot more than I was expecting, frankly.
two more than you could have.
Right.
Yeah.
And towards the end, like ordinarily I would heal when I was at about 40% health, because obviously I couldn't really afford to waste Estus. But if I was at 40%, that would be about I would be about at full health once I used 1 Estus there. But towards the end of the fight, once I knew, once I was pretty confident that I was on pace as far as Estus goes, I would start healing a little bit earlier, just because at that point the only way that I would die was if I took like, because he has, if he's powered up, a couple of his moves will do like 60% of my
Yes. So like the
life
only way
total.
you're losing at that point is to get comboed out.
Right,
So
it
like
is to like
staying
make
at full would avoid
one
that.
one bad mistake, and so I took some steps to try to avoid that. Um, but
Yeah, because his normal attacks when he's not powered up don't actually do that much damage with
I
the
with
giant set
the
and
armor
99
set that
humanity.
with the armor set that I have, and like everything about this build except for like the mask of the child is devoted to just taking less damage and staying in light roll. But even then, this is like the second heaviest armor set, I want to say.
Yeah, it's the most protective.
Right. Once it's upgraded, it has the highest like damage reduction values. But it's definitely not as heavy as Hovel's set, and it might not even be as heavy as the stone armor. I don't really know.
I forget how it
They're pretty
goes.
close. I mean, it's just a pretty heavy armor set. So,
I'm really, really heavy.
well, there's one where I walked up to him and like took a light attack, and it just whiffed because the hitbox is so weird.
Yep, that cost you points.
Yep, that was
The
2 damage
judges,
I missed.
yeah, the judges are gonna look at that. He
Right,
wasn't aggressive.
and
He was
that's
holding.
yeah, that's times when I should be heavy attacking, because the heavy attack hitbox, first of all, it is a little bit longer range, but also is just a little more where you expect it to be, just because it is sort of
Yeah,
a just sort of a right arm straight punch, as opposed to the right attack. The light attack is more like kind of a hook. Oh, now
yeah. Here we go, getting kind of low.
I'm pretty low here. I definitely need to heal at the first safe opportunity, but I'm not the one who decides when there's a safe opportunity, so I just get to keep going until he does something.
And Schwab.
Sure is a lot of fun, like having him somersault straight towards you, and you have to like wait until the right frame to actually dodge.
It's like, okay, I have to know which attack you're
Here he
doing.
comes.
Yep, and that was just the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Artorias and Gwyn have combos, but they can choose to stop them in any position in the combo. They aren't committed at any point.
Which is awful strange. It feels like they're so complicated, especially Artie compared to every other boss in the game. Even Manus isn't that complicated.
Yeah,
Um,
Manus has combos, but like once he starts them, he's committed to like doing the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like if you see the downward cross punch, you know, like immediately after that, there's a second punch to that. It's always going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But about the only random thing about him is which spell attack he chooses to do.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, usually he does the rain to me. I feel like that's the most common compared to the wizard shotgun or the encircle spell.
Yeah, the rain. I think he probably that's probably intentional because it's kind of the easiest to dodge.
I kind of
And
wish he did the encircle more because that's
I mean,
secretly the
yeah,
easiest to
once you know what
dodge.
to do about the encircle, then it's not dangerous, unless you're in a very bad place. But uh,
At the edge of the screen,
yeah, it's like, oh no, I'm way too far away.
if they just broke in a Soul Level 1 run on the remaster because I hadn't beat Dark Souls in a while. I was like, okay, what if I play this game in Soul Level 1 again? Because I haven't done
Oh,
that in a
okay,
while.
yeah. I
And I
actually have
kept dying.
never done a solo. I've started solo level one runs, but I've never finished them. So that's
They're,
something I
I
probably
think
should do at some point.
they're my most recommended challenge run because it's interesting, but not actually that much more difficult than just playing the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah, once you have practice with it, then it's a
You can like
sort of
you're
a.
constrained mostly in what equipment you can use, but
Mm-hmm,
the equipment you can use is actually pretty good. So
mm-hmm. And the other
it just
things
makes
like
you love club.
yeah, we've also done much harder things than the soul level one run at this point. So at this point, it doesn't feel like. I mean, you're constrained, but it's not super challenging.
Yeah. One of the things it does that is nice is compared to like even this challenge run, we're defined by how tough we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're I'm gonna guess all of your stats have gone into like health and stamina.
There's a lot of health and stamina. There's a fair amount of resistance. I can't remember
Yeah, res.
because the thing is like okay, one of the first things I did. This was before I punched out Gwyn. Was I wanted to know if your fist scaled off of any of strength or dexterity. I didn't think it would, and it doesn't. But I did test it, and so have. I think I have a few points in strength or dexterity just so I can use some better weapon to grind souls with.
Yeah, just like
But it's not doing anything for
longsword
this
or
fight.
something.
Yeah, I think it ended up being reinforced club. Um,
Yeah, my favorite.
hmm But anyway, and of course, intelligence and faith aren't going to do anything. So once stamina, once endurance and vitality were as high as I wanted them to be, then points just started going into resistance, and
I miss defense.
yeah, because survivability is like the only variable, not the only variable that matters here, but making any given hit from Artorias do less damage is pretty key.
If this was Gwyn, then maybe intelligence and faith would be more useful than resistance because they actually affect
Oh, your magic
uh, your
resist.
your magic and fire resist more
Right,
than resistance does. But
right.
Artorias just does physical damage.
I think some of his attacks do magic damage. Like I think the goop fling
The goop probably. The easy way to
counts
test would
as
just be come out here with a shield,
was it
see what you can
yes
block and what you
with
can't.
various shields and see what blocking does. Right, but I think yeah, like most of his damage is physical, and so resistance was
But
just the
the
thing to do.
but the nice thing about Soul Level 1 is you can have a lot of damage if you want it. You can
Mm-hmm.
have okay weapons if you want it.
You can have pretty reasonable weapons.
Like basically it's your choice of battle axe or reinforced
Yeah,
club.
but I think battle axe is a pretty reasonable weapon.
Yeah. Or if you're two-handed, you can have giant's hammer,
Oh,
which is what the speedrun does.
okay.
Um, so what the speedrun does lightning damage.
Giant's hammer.
Killing
You
the giant
mean yeah,
blacksmith,
the
yeah.
blacksmith's hammer. Yeah, okay, that's cute.
But you don't have a lot of health, so you have to learn to dodge. That's
Right.
probably where I learned to dodge, was just playing Soul Level 1, not having a lot of hits. Up there's the swoop attack.
Yeah, I think how I learned to dodge Artorias specifically was I had one run where I started out the run with the goal of cutting off Calamete's tail, which I did, but then I had this cool sword, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with this cool sword? The game is practically over. And so I decided to take that character through New Game Plus
Hmm.
many, and when I was starting that run out, I didn't. I fought most of the like normal bosses that you would fight, and I started out doing all the bosses in the DLC, but I eventually got kind of tired of fighting Manus and Calamite because on high New Game Plus levels it's hard. But
Yeah, just kind of a slog.
but I kept fighting Artorias on every New Game Plus level, and I think that's how I sort of learned to dodge his moves anyway. Like obviously, it wasn't until like the last year and a half or so that I learned to fight Artorias in a way that involved attacking him a lot. Since that's sort of how I decided how I learned that what I enjoyed about this fight was dodging rather than actually attacking. So doing the punching run sort of broke me of that habit. So it's like, no, you actually do have to attack him as much as you can because otherwise this fight will never end.
Now, when you actually have a weapon in this fight, then you don't want to attack him at all, so that you can just keep dodging him.
Right. Well, that's why the broken straight sword fight took so long. Because and you can like going back and watching it, I'm just like shocked at how slow it is. Like, why am I not attacking at these moments? And
you can only attack him when you're absolutely safe.
yeah, like that's what I was doing. Is like, well, I don't know if this is gonna work, but if it is gonna work, it's because I won't take any risks at all, and that's what happened. But it did make for a very long fight.
I forget what the number on that is. Is it 87? Is that your number?
Oh,
with broken straight sword.
With broken straight sword with the lightning resin, I think is 87. Without the resin, it's and when you're
it's like 40 or something.
It's 56.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
So
I'm glad I could maybe remember that number from how many times I did that fight.
I mean, you also have different. You get different amounts of damage for each type of attack. So light attack does some different amount. I think like 52 or something.
Yeah. I think I only did first hit of the heavy combo two-handed.
Well, that's because that move is actually pretty good because it is relatively fast and carries you forward a decent amount. So.
Decent range, comes out pretty fast, does an amount of damage, doesn't do a lot, does some.
Yeah, it does some damage. Although speaking of some damage, while I was sort of training for the punching run here, once I got far enough along that I felt confident in it, but I hadn't done it yet, and it wasn't really even particularly close. It occurred to me that at this point, the straight sword hilt fight of Artorias should be relatively easy because you have way more than 2 damage. You have 7 damage.
Yeah, you could have 7. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I went ahead and did that. Like on it took me a day or two to build the character that could do it. But after I did that, the fight was not very hard. Like it was way shorter than this one because you have 7 damage instead of 2. And so
you're cursing me. I'm going to be thinking about that. I don't have to do this. This I don't have to do. But I might have to sort them out though.
I will say that the only fight that I did for that character was with the hilt was Artorias. Like I didn't. I've already fought the rest of the game with the hilt. I don't need to do that again. But so
and how
right. And even like the Sanctuary Guardian, I feel no obligation to fight that with anything worse than the broken straight sword because I don't think that fight is very interesting.
It's not very fun.
Yeah, like which is the main reason why I like fighting Gwyn and Artorias is because again they're just guys with swords and so they can't do anything too weird. Whereas the Sanctuary Guardian, like a lot of the time you can't attack him because he's just not very close to you and he's still attacking you.
The dumb backpedaling animals. And like even some of the I liked fighting fights like the Gaping Dragon. I think that was a fun fight. With broken straight sword. But Sanctuary Guardian, come on! What do you fly away and shoot your ranged attacks? You're like a stupid dog with your backflips.
Mm-hmm. Although I would be willing to maybe think about punching out Sif because I feel like once you can do this to Artorias, doing it to Sif seems like it might be pretty reasonable.
That's thematic.
Yeah, right. I mean, the other thing that makes this more feasible to do with Artorias is because this is by far the most normal boss fight arena in the game. Like, it's just a complete circle, and you can see the walls all the time. Whereas even Sif has the big obelisk in the middle of it.
And sometimes Sif gets up on the outer ring of the arena,
the hill, and get down from there. Whereas, and even like Manus's arena is circular, I guess, but like
There's some rocks in the way
there's some rocks
sometimes.
and like I guess there are walls on the edges, but you can't see them, and
Yeah, when you get close
it
to
gets
poo
weird.
walls.
Yeah. So one of the things that made this more feasible compared to other boss fights is just like the regularity of the boss arena. Like I still take steps in this fight to stay away from the walls because I don't want either myself or Artorias to get stuck against the wall.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Like it limits your dodging options.
Right. And the basic reality is that his attack pattern combined with your dodging pattern means that you are rotating around each other pretty often. And so if you get stuck up against a wall, then you might not be able to dodge in the ways that you need to, and then you're finished.
I think Fire Centipede would be really hard to punch out.
Yeah, that would take a long time, and
You'd,
it's
you'd have to
hard to
like get
avoid
up
all of
into
his
the center.
attacks. Like,
Yeah, I don't even know if you would want to get the orange chartering from the fight because oftentimes I'll just like
oh, like chop
uh
off one of the little ones and just get the
yeah,
ring.
like just get the ring and then use the ring to fight them. And even then, like if you wouldn't be able to stand in the lava with all the chip damage you're taking
Right.
when you're punching them out.
I would maybe consider allowing humanity healing in that fight, just because again, you can't
Mm.
avoid the lava damage if you're fighting over if you're not fighting in the big safe area.
What about Sanctus? Would you allow Sanctus?
Well, one problem with Sanctus is that you can't put it on your back, and then
No,
you,
you would just be punching
yeah, I
with
guess
your
that's
right
true.
hand fists. Yeah,
Yeah,
no blocking though. That's illegal.
yeah, no, you like put a piece of plastic or something over the L1 button so you can't block.
Or just unmap it or pry the button out of your controller.
Yeah, untap the L1 button. I mean
Yeah.
that's true. Like when I was punching out Gwyn, like I basically I just got a Black Knight shield and upgraded it fully, and that was how I blocked the first attack. Like the
Mhm.
plan was just to block that thing, and then you just take no damage because it has such high fire block. Um, and so I allowed that, even though all of my damage was coming from my fist. So there's like the option of trying to fight Gwyn where you usually are far away from him so he doesn't do that, but that's a much more involved dance where you're like constantly dancing around him and getting in chip punches when you can, such that he won't try to combo off on you. I don't know if that's possible. Like, that's something I might consider in like 3 years or something like that.
I think if you wanted to do the ranged fight with Gwen, you would just backpedal until he did the leap attack and just repeatedly parry it.
Yeah, like if you get the parry timing on the leap attack safe, consistent enough, then you could think about doing that. I don't need to do any more Dark Souls research projects for a while. That's another. Speaking of being exhausted by this, I can. I went back and looked at how many attempts I did, which included like the exploratory runs where I just like walk in and just like do silly things, like see if I could find safe attacks. Like I even tried to find windows where I could dodge into the helicopter and like try to get, which I gave up on that because I don't think you can do that. But including all of those things, that was like 30 attempts ish, maybe a little more than that. So that's a lot more than any of my other challenge runs have taken. Like punching out Gwyn, it took me a couple runs to get the strategy down, and then it took 2 takes after I had the strategy down. And the first one failed because I got distracted by my cats. So
That's what they're there for, is to
yeah, right.
distract you.
And some of the 30 takes here, a few of those were like a cat walked across the screen and I died, but most of them were just me dying to normal stuff.
It's just the cat risk.
Yeah, like
It's like they
I,
they,
I,
they, they have attacks.
I could go shut them up in my bedroom, but I don't feel like it's worth doing that to my cats, so I didn't do that and tried to just sort of time it. That was the other fun thing is that fun he says, is that the process of practicing this one take takes long enough that I can't really do more than one in a day because my hands will start to,
Like cramping up, yeah.
either cramp up or I don't want to expose myself to like repetitive stress problems. So I would like try it once in a day, and then like 2 days later, I would have time. I would be able to set aside enough time to do it again. And so the process took like I tried it for a while. Again, after we did the all bosses run, which was in May or whenever that was, and then the weather got too hot, and I didn't like doing like really long Dark Souls runs in the summer just because my palms get sweaty and it's kind of gross. So I kind of went on hiatus in the summer, and then the weather cooled off again. And then once I picked it up again, it took me about 6 weeks of practicing to actually get it done because the practicing process is so slow. So
That's where it's the Dark Souls weather.
yeah, the Dark Souls weather.
It's Dark Souls weather.
I will say that like I was a little bit glad that I didn't have any attempts at this where I got really close and then died. Prior to this, I think the closest I got closer, more than halfway through, but I think the closest I got was like 60% of the way through. So I count myself lucky that I didn't have any attempts where I got to like 95% done and then died. It was just like,
Yeah, that'd be pretty disheartening.
that would be really obnoxious.
Like, it's like dying in Battletoads.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm out of resets. I have to go all the way back to the warp, and I forget where the warp in stage 1 takes you, but whatever. It's hard to get to the warps in that game. It's like you dying at the end. It's like if you take other old shitty platformers, like when you beat it'd be like beating Ghosts and Goblins on the first cycle. It's like, okay, you beat the game, and then the game just says no, you have to beat it again. Because you have to beat that game twice to get to the actual final boss. So it's like, I don't want to do that again. But you gotta.
Right. All right, so I think probably a good way to wrap this up is I can skip to the end where I actually show my character screen, which might
or we can.
Yes.
We can skip to the end of the actual fight.
Well,
Like, we got to see you killing him, right?
Well, yeah, right. Like the thing is, like the way that I'm seeking here, there's no way that I can avoid like showing you the end of the fight because those two events are like 30 seconds apart.
Okay.
Also, my hard drive has to seek because this file is 8 gigabytes. Here we are.
We're in the last 2% of his health bars, I would guess.
Yeah. One of the other silly things is that the boss health bars have 13 chunks, which is the most inconvenient number. Like, I don't know why they did that.
Old triskaidekaphobia or whatever, yeah.
That's why.
No, triskaidekaphilia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it's basically a fake word. There he goes. Turns into poo gas.
And of course, at this point, I'm like mostly dead.
Yeah, 2 S's left.
Like, oh, you want me to give controller input? What if I don't do that? Okay, I'll just pause this and then. Anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna guess all your stuff is +5.
Yeah, like Master Child cannot be upgraded, but. And then so I'm level 96.
Got your 40 vit, you got your 59 endurance, and your 26 resistance.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
That 59 endurance is like the minimum delight roll with this setup, so.
Yeah, I think you could cheat on that a little if you used the favor and protection ring.
Right. The reason why I didn't do that, and you might already know this, is that like increasing your max hit points doesn't do as much when most of your health is in your Estus. So I would get higher endurance, and then I'm not sure what I would do with those levels instead. I don't think putting them into resistance would be very good. So I sort of decided that Ring of Steel protection was going to be better than Ring of Favor and protection.
Yeah.
And then like these numbers barely matter. Like my physical defense is very high. And these are just like big numbers. They don't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it's hard to. That's one of the bad things about this game is a lot of these numbers don't mean anything.
Right.
Just know that bigger is better. But yeah, you did it. You beat Artorias with your fists.
Mm-hmm.
That's some good Dark Souls.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, Gnome, for joining me for this Dark Souls video. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to edit this and actually get it posted, but it'll happen.
But I'll be there when it is there, just as I was here now.
Mm-hmm.
Good Soulsin'.
All right. Thanks, everybody.